Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you are new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover here today, so do me a favor before we dive into these topics. If you end up enjoying the video or finding it informative, be sure to leave it a like, and if you are new here to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button as well. We're starting here with some new information about the Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. One of the biggest questions many had after the announcement was whether Metal Gear Solid 3 director Hideo Kojima was involved in the project. There wasn't much hope that Kojima was going to be part of this project, especially after his breakup with Konami, but it was a question nonetheless. We also asked if Yoji Shinkawa was involved, as he was integral in the art of the Metal Gear Solid series and is now working with Kojima at Kojima Productions. They are not involved, a Konami spokesperson said. However, the development team will work hard to create this remake and also the ports for the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection so that they can be enjoyed on multiple platforms by even more players all around the world. So, who is working on the remake? As it turns out, the central role will be taken on by Konami developers who have been involved in the production of the past games in the Metal Gear series. These developers will be working with Virtuos, a studio who has also been involved in the production of previous entries in the Metal Gear series. This confirms earlier rumors that Virtuos, which has worked on everything from Dark Souls Remastered to Uncharted 4, was involved with the remake. We then asked why the team chose to start with Metal Gear Solid 3 as opposed to the first Metal Gear Solid, and it all seemed to boil down to the fact that the third entry is actually the spark of the larger Metal Gear tale. We chose Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater because it depicts the birth of Big Boss, which is the starting point of the Metal Gear series, a Konami spokesperson said. Another reason is that many fans have been requesting a remake of the game for a long time. Fans also appear to be a big factor as to whether there will be future Metal Gear remakes or even brand new games. Konami was careful not to mention new games despite us asking, but it did share that regarding remakes of previous games in the series other than Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, they will listen to player demand and consider accordingly. So yeah, this is actually some really interesting information we're getting regarding Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. We're getting official confirmation that Hideo Kojima and Yoji Shinkawa are not involved. Can't say this is a big surprise. I think that some people were still holding out hope that maybe Kojima would have just some type of involvement, even if it just came down to consultation. But Kojima is doing his own thing at his own studio, and I also think it's interesting that Konami acknowledges the fact that Metal Gear Solid 3 is technically the first game in the series. It's where the timeline begins, and that's why they're choosing to remake this one first. And they also mentioned that if people end up enjoying this remake and would like to see more remakes, they are certainly open to doing that. So at this point in time, while I am excited for Metal Gear Solid 3's Snake Eater being remade, I've seen the screenshots. They look really good. I thought the trailer was good. I am now just waiting to see gameplay. I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for, because that's really what's going to determine, I think, how excited people really are going to end up feeling about this remake, especially knowing that Hideo Kojima is not involved. So let me know your thoughts on that. Moving on to the next topic, we're talking about Final Fantasy XVI and how a PlayStation 4 port was initially planned. Coming from PlayStation Lifestyle, Final Fantasy XVI is a PS5 title and one of the bigger exclusives of the year. However, it wasn't always set as a PS5 specific game, as a Final Fantasy XVI PS4 port was once planned. Producer Naoki Yoshida revealed this in an interview with Final Fantasy Union. Near the end of the interview, Yoshida, who previously explained the offers Sony gave Square Enix for exclusivity, noted that Final Fantasy XVI was a cross-gen title at first, but the team ditched the old hardware because it would take too much time to work with. We originally had a plan to possibly release the game on PlayStation 4. During development, we realized that in order to get it to the level that we were going to be proud of, we would have needed at least 1 or 2 more years of development to do that. And so I had to make the decision at the time. It's like, we don't want to extend it that long. Let's go PS5 only. So once again, getting some interesting insight from the development team who's working on Final Fantasy XVI, talking about a cross-gen release, how it was originally planned, but they essentially had to scrap it because, as they're saying here, it would have taken apparently years to actually make that happen. So yeah, it's been fun, kind of following the interviews when it comes to Final Fantasy 16, because this development team has been very candid and they've been revealing a lot of very good, I'd say, information and giving us some good insight into, what went into this game. So figured I would let you guys know about that. Next up, we have some not so great news. PlayStation Visual Arts AAA multiplayer team is hit with layoffs, being reported by PS Lifestyle. PlayStation developers continue to be hit with layoffs. The latest round has impacted PlayStation Visual Arts, which was working on an unannounced AAA multiplayer game. Over the last month, Sony partners have reduced their headcounts due to the project being restructured and at least one reported cancellation of a PS5 game. According to a LinkedIn post published by former PS Visual Arts developer John Borba, the layoffs were due to a large pivot on a AAA multiplayer game. There was some restructuring within our studio, and I was among the people let go to support the new budgetary needs, he added. In October of 2022, job listings revealed that PS Visual Arts was working on a mystery project with Naughty Dog. Last week, reports emerged that The Last of Us multiplayer game is being reevaluated and the team is being downsized. Borba's LinkedIn post suggests that the project he was working on wasn't shelved. His statement came shortly after Naughty Dog stated it'll continue to work on The Last of Us multiplayer despite further delays, so it's quite possible that the AAA multiplayer game Borba is referring to is The Last of Us multiplayer. Now, I want to add to this something that makes me question whether or not they were involved with this Last of Us multiplayer is the developer mentions this AAA multiplayer game being stylized. Now, we don't know what The Last of Us multiplayer looks like currently. All we have are 2 pieces of concept art to go off of, and those pieces of concept art do not indicate that Naughty Dog decided to go for a stylized look with The Last of Us multiplayer. Now, does that mean that it couldn't be stylized to a certain extent? No, maybe it is, but we do know that there are other multiplayer games that are being worked on at PlayStation Studios that are stylized. So I don't necessarily know that we can, come to the conclusion that these developers were working on The Last of Us multiplayer, but it's understandable that people would come to this conclusion considering the timing of it. But either way, never good to hear about layoffs, so hopefully the developers land on their feet quickly. And yeah, not great news. But moving on from that, we have a new PlayStation PC announcement. Yesterday on Twitter, the official PlayStation Twitter account says Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart comes to PC on July 26th as Nixxes Software collaborates with Insomniac Games to bring the interdimensional adventure to ultra-wide screen monitors everywhere. So yeah, a lot of people were wondering when they were going to hear about the next PC announcement for a PlayStation game. A lot of people were thinking that it was going to happen at the showcase. It never did happen. Turns out they were just waiting a little bit, I guess, to announce Ratchet and Clank. And so, yeah, Ratchet and Clank is the latest game that's going to be going to PC. At this point, I think, it's a matter of will they be able to launch this game in a good state, because the last game that Sony launched on PC was The Last of Us Part 1, and that obviously had some severe issues that are still being worked on. So the fact that Nixxes Software is partnering with Insomniac, I think that gives people a lot of confidence, and a lot of people are expecting that this is going to be a solid port. So there you go. Next up, we have some new information regarding Spider-Man 2. The first talks about the actor who portrays Peter Parker in the game, that being Yuri Lowenthal, and he talks about how he prepared for the role, specifically with the symbiote suit, and this making Peter more aggressive, as we could see in the demo. It says here, Lowenthal said that the team worked really hard to find the right tone and direction for the portrayal of such an angry entity, because sometimes it just sounded comical and had to be reworked. Elaborating, Lowenthal explains, we looked at addiction in people and what the behaviors of addiction are. That's really what we went for when it comes to inspiration and to find the levels of it. It's not always the same, every time. So yeah, addiction would be my simple answer. So it's cool to get some insight from Yuri talking about how he prepared for this role and the direction that Insomniac wanted to take it. And based off of what I can tell, people really like the direction that Insomniac is going in with the symbiote suit and, you know, how it's affecting Peter. And I think it's pretty cool as well. I thought that that was kind of the standout of the demo, specifically gameplay wise. But I do like the angle that they're going for with the story here, where we're going to get a more aggressive, potentially more unhinged version of Peter Parker, and I'm definitely going to be interested to see where it goes. So it's interesting that they're talking about, you know, looking at addiction in people and how that's kind of going to be, you know, how Peter ends up feeling, or I guess being impacted, I should say, by the symbiote suit. Moving on to the final topic here, it's once again talking about Spider-Man 2. It's nothing major, but something that I do think is worth pointing out. The recent Spider-Man 2 PS5 gameplay wasn't from the final build. Insomniac Games has confirmed that Marvel's Spider-Man 2 PS5 gameplay footage that was recently shown off at the PlayStation Showcase wasn't from the game's final build. This news shouldn't surprise fans, but Spider-Man 2 has bizarrely found itself at the center of a heated debate about next-gen graphics. Following May 2023's PlayStation Showcase, social media and gaming forums were rife with players comparing Spider-Man 2 with Spider-Man Remastered, and some expressing disappointment that it looked graphically similar. Concerned fans took to Twitter to quiz Insomniac's community manager James Stevenson about the footage. And so Stevenson essentially replies by letting people know that this is not the final build, and it's not, you know, exactly how the game is going to look when it's finished. The article concludes by saying the tiresome commentary about graphics has certainly caught the attention of Insomniac Games, prompting some devs to retweet Digital Foundry's John Linneman, who pointed out that Spider-Man 2 has visibly improved ray tracing, more details, and larger set pieces. This isn't the first time Insomniac has found itself mired in controversy about graphics. The original was criticized by some for downgrading the quality of in-game puddles in the final release. This time, the conversation has devolved into arguments about water graphics, and we all know how that turned out. So, yeah, I mean, this should go without saying, but maybe there are some people who genuinely don't know that to create these vertical slices that we see, these gameplay demos, it takes a good chunk of time, and what we are seeing is, you know, months old, a build that is months old, potentially greater than 6 months old. We don't know exactly, but yeah, not only is what we saw, in my opinion, in that demo very good by itself, it actually, I think, is just great news that it's only going to improve. And yeah, if you don't want to take it from me or other people who are impressed by it, Digital Foundry's John Linneman, you know, he's pointing out that, look, from an objective standpoint, there are some significant improvements here compared to Spider-Man Remastered, and certainly what we got with Spider-Man PS4. So there you go. But, you know, if you're somebody who maybe was a little bit concerned, you can at least take some solace in the fact that, hey, Insomniac has plenty of time to polish, and this is an older build, and you will very likely see an even better looking game by the time it launches. Anyway, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. Be sure to leave it a like if you did, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.